All right, we are back on the Tech Hub. My guest is Ken Biberaj, who is running for City Council in New York City. He is a Democrat on the Upper West Side, and he has my vote, although I do live on the Upper East Side, but I've been out campaigning for him. Welcome, Ken.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, last week, I wrote an article for FoxNews.com about technology and the electorate and voting, and how Obama has been, like him or dislike him, he's been masterful at using emails and the internet, and a lot of as times change and things are changing, the old world, old guard of editorials and newspapers are upset with him because he's able to ignore the press. He doesn't need them to get his message out, and this is just going to be a thing that happens serendipitously, I think. I don't think he has some big evil master plan the way a lot of Republicans say. It is growing organically, and nobody can predict how it's going to happen. So let's talk about what we can do positively, though, with technology and politics. What are you doing?
Well, look, I mean, just on the point of the president, I think they really aggressively have pushed the needle just so far in the last 2 elections. I mean, really, even in a local race like ours for city council, we constantly look at the kind of things they did. We obviously don't have a $1 billion campaign to actually build some of the data systems they did, but I mean, it's pretty impressive that they actually went to Silicon Valley and, you know, they talked to the folks at Google and they put together like real data collection metrics to really move the needle on it. But even locally for us for a small city council race, we have to kind of look at the internet and technology as a way to reach people at an affordable way and just constantly just reach out. So as an example, I was at the 72nd Street subway this morning, and I go out there with a cup of coffee to pass out flyers to promote our own campaign. And the first thing I do every single time I go out is I take a picture of my coffee and a picture of my flyer, and I post it to Instagram, which automatically connects to Twitter and Facebook. And
I follow you on Twitter.
So it's a small, simple thing, but we do it every single day. And then it gets us visually on people's Facebook. So right when they get to the office, they see Ken's already at the subway station. They see it on Twitter that we're out there. So it really gives the impression that we're just covering so much ground and we're doing so many different things.
Well, it's also got to be really cost effective. That's what I was thinking about yesterday when I saw one of your emails, because I really despised these. And actually one of the first times I didn't vote Democrat was because I got so many annoying recorded messages from Carolyn Maloney, who's my congressperson or congresswoman. Hello, I am Carolyn Maloney. It's like, enough already. I know you're not really calling me, but there's something more intimate and pleasant about getting a Twitter thing, because you could decide whether you want to look at it or not. You have to get in there and turn your answering machine on and wait a minute to delete it. So how are you using it? And how is it saving you money?
Well, on the money front, for a city council race in New York, the city has this great public matching program. So the city will actually give us some money, but we'll be required to have spending limits. So we can only spend $170,000 in a city council race in New York. So you can't go on the radio except for this opportunity, which we greatly appreciate, and you can't really do paid
We're doing
television.
This as a podcast.
This is a podcast, which is great. But the traditional means that the president could go on TV and do 100 television ads and buy up every single spot. We can't do that. So we have to, play the field a little bit, and technology allows us to do that with the weekly newsletters, standing at the subways, collecting people's data, their emails. Every single event is an opportunity to collect an email and a cell phone number.
How do you put your email list together?
So we have just organically been growing it, and we'll do a lot of big public events where we were doing fundraisers for $10 or even house parties for no money, just for the purposes to meet new people and collect their names. And every time we do an event, instead of raising more money, we ask them to bring 2-3 friends. And we've been able to exponentially grow our email list, which now allows us to post things on Facebook, on Twitter, and then blast out a newsletter. And even when we do these newsletters, which I think you get as well, we'll send something out and we'll tell people to click on the link that'll take them to the Facebook page or the Twitter page. So then hopefully they'll start following us and keep better track of it. And this is a cost-effective, real way to do it. Because like you said, if you're getting robocalls or, mail, these traditional things, you get kind of overwhelmed and it's easy to ignore them. So as a candidate, we have to find creative ways to get in front of you. And whether that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we got to come up with creative content that's visual and also just kind of interesting. And I think the president was able to do that successfully on a national level, and we're trying to do it on the Upper West Side, which is just a real microcosm. And one of the things that we've talked a lot about is supporting small businesses. So when we do things, like an Instagram or a tweet, we always try to highlight one of the local businesses on the Upper West Side to promote them as well. And then if you're lucky, what they'll do is they'll retweet you or they'll tag you on their own Facebook page, so then the people who like those businesses will then see you and then like you as well.
Well, I think I grew up in politics. My parents were involved in local, state, and national politics. And my mother was one of the campaign managers for Bobby Kennedy back in the day when he was planning a presidential run. And I remember as a really young kid riding around in a van with my father when we were doing local politics, and he had a loudspeaker with this giant old speaker attached to the roof of the van, and urging people, he would say, vote line A all the way. That's kind of what my knowledge of politics when I was 7 years old. But interestingly, you had a lot of people then that didn't really know the issues. All they knew was, oh, okay, I'll vote line A all the way, and I'll click down, which is why you had people that would vote strictly yellow dog Democrat or arch conservative Republican, and now we are exposed to more of the issues if we want to be and do our due diligence through Twitter and emails.
Absolutely.
And so it should hopefully make for more effective campaigning, although for some reason we seem to be, at least nationally, marred in a very partisan world.
Well, you understand this. I mean, there's just so much information out there that's constantly being pummeled to us. So what we've tried to recognize in our own campaign is to appreciate the convergence in technology. So to take pictures, to take video, and to find ways to intertwine all of that in every communication we're sending out to people. So we did a newsletter last week where, we had pictures that highlighted our year in review. We had some audio from an event that we had done, and we actually had a video montage that was put together about an event for Black History Month. And all of that is in one email that's coming out to you, and then we tweet it out and Facebook it out. So it's this convergence that you have to kind of, back in the day, you can stand on top of the car and yell out of the bullhorn, but you got to do so much more.
What
today.
you're doing is from my experience with following your tweets and your emails, is you're humanizing the whole political process and making people feel as if they actually know you too. So I think that's very good.
Yeah, and part of it for us too is not to always be asking for stuff. So at the national level, I think some of your frustration and my frustration has always been every email that comes in from a candidate you follow is always like, I need $5 more or $3 more or get us here, get us there. And the beauty of the system in New York is it allows us to use technology to kind of just communicate without necessarily making a hard ask all the time, which is really important because you want to build some loyalty over the course of a campaign where you're not just, hey, I need $100, I need you to make phone calls, I need you to stand at the door. Sometimes it's like, hey, we were at this great event, check it out, have you seen this new business that opened up? And the convergence of data and technology helps us get there.
I have a naive question for you, Ken.
Sure.
What happens, because I was actually one of those kids, I used to write letters to my congressman, and one of my great achievements for a friend was a college professor of mine, this is in the early 1980s, retired, and he was a political science professor, and I wrote a letter to Ronald Reagan and got this unbelievable response from, if Reagan didn't write it, whoever wrote it actually read my letter and responded in kind, and I asked for a photo of Ron and Nancy, and they sent it. And in those days, it used to be also, if you wrote to the White House, my grandfather wrote a letter to FDR, and FDR sent him a presidential portrait, which hung in my grandfather's restaurant. But so can people respond to you email-wise? How do they get in touch with you? And then are you able to, do you respond back, or because of emails can you get like thousands of them?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting that you asked, because we've been out there so visibly passing out flyers at subway stations, and this literature we give out, it has a phone number, it has a mailing address, Facebook, Twitter, and email. And it's just fascinating to see, like on a morning today, for example, you'll hand out 100 pieces of literature. You'll get a couple of emails, maybe you'll get a phone call. So many of the kind of contacts back come via Twitter, where somebody will then publicly tweet me and say, well, what are you going to do about this issue?
Dear Ken, I don't like my next door neighbor's dog.
But it
I will
happens
vote
now
for
publicly. Yeah, but now it's like a more public kind of thing where they'll go on my campaign Facebook page and then, I met you at the subway, what do you think about this? Or they'll tweet us directly. So we, in a small local race, we have the opportunity. I mean, I just left, our campaign office. I have a campaign manager and a social media director. And those are the two most important things in a campaign this size with such a limited budget. And, we were just talking about some of the inquiries that were coming in because you have to respond in real time. People expect it. They see, hey, if you took the time to put another picture on Facebook and Twitter, why didn't you respond to my email or my tweet? So the level of kind of necessity to respond is also escalated, which makes it harder because then all of a sudden you're getting so many inquiries coming in. So
if there
it's a challenge.
60 Minutes or somebody did a special on senators and they showed like the and the president, and they have these signing machines and they make it look like a really official signature. So you're going to probably get 10 times the amount of mail on every level locally, nationally, statewide, because of email. So it puts an additional onus on the politician, but it does connect you more, at least, to the needs of your constituency.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes down the barriers to accessibility. Now, people genuinely feel like they can have access to us at any time they need. You know, either we're at a street corner, they can see where I am on Twitter, they'll walk. People will come sometimes and just show up because I posted I'm going to be at the subway station. So they're like, yeah, I didn't want to make an appointment, so you said you were going to be here, so I just showed up. And it's like, okay, fair enough. So let's have a conversation. What's on your mind? We take out some notes, and we collect their data. And it's a fantastic way to really kind of campaign and get a feel for what's going on in the neighborhood. The West Side is a very engaged community. There's a lot of important issues, but we're using technology to kind of try to make sure that everyone there feels like they can have access to us. Because if we win, we want to be able to do it at the same level. We want to be able to understand the concerns of the community.
It's a slightly older community in some parts of the West Side. I notice people still listening to 8-track players there, but I'm sure that you're going to bring them into the modern age.
You have to. It's like I said, it's a convergence, right? So you have to find a nice balance. And even in a lot of the senior centers, we'll bring in videos, we'll bring in laptops, and we'll show them some of the stuff that we've done, and we'll print out our newsletters at times, and we'll actually bring physical copies because some people don't have access to the internet, and we want to make sure that you're not neglecting large portions of the community. But you can still use the technology that goes into creating all those formats and then just distribute it physically. So, we're not leaving any stone unturned. And, you do get those phone calls too.
Well, Ken, it was great to have you on the show. I know you have an appointment to be uptown. I don't want to hold you here too long. It was very informative.
You must have seen that on Twitter.
I did. I checked it out, and I urge all of our millions of listeners to vote for Ken if you live on the Upper West Side. Is it anywhere on the Upper West Side?
So if you live between 54th Street and 109th Street, between Central Park West and the Hudson River, you could also just go to ken2013.com for more information.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.